Oh boy, man. The Democrat Party got told off, got disrespected, and Obama got shut down at Jesse Jackson's funeral by black people who got tired of their bullshit. So let's go ahead and get to the video, shall we?
Barack Hussein Obama, the ex-president, gave his speech at Jesse Jackson's funeral. And all I can say is, Barack Obama, sit your ass down.
Obama spoke at Jesse Jackson's funeral today, spewing the same I was taught, I was indoctrinated with as a child.
We are living in a time when it can be hard to hope. Each day we wake up to some new assault, another setback, an offense to fear each other and to turn on each other, and that some Americans count more than others, and that some don't even count at all. Everywhere we see greed and bigotry being celebrated, and bullying and mockery masquerading as strength, denigrated ignorance and dishonesty and cruelty and corruption, and it's hard to hope.
This speech was so negative. Literally, black people have to be dragged through the mud and brought back up. You know, they have to feel inspired and worthy of good. I'm so sick of this damn messaging. It's old, it's whacked, it's played out. Literally, these people are casting spells and have damaged the black community. They have set the black community back.
Yesterday,
Oh yeah, here we go. Get her in.
I listened for several hours of 3 United States presidents who do not know Jesse Jackson.
That's right, get into it, man.
He maintained a tense relationship with the political order, not because the presidents were white or black, but the demands of our message, the demands of speaking for the least of these, those who were disinherited, the damned, the dispossessed, the disrespected, demanded not Democratic or Republican solutions, but demanded a consistent, prophetic voice that at no point in time ever sold us out as a people. And it speaks volumes about who the Reverend Jesse Jackson was.
Boy. So we got to talk about Democrats, including Barack Hussein Obama, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and others are getting backlash from black Americans who are pissed off that they showed up to Jesse Jackson's funeral and decided to make it about politics, even though Jesse Jackson's son specifically requested a non-political funeral. He said, listen, don't show up to this funeral and make it about politics, right? It's not about politics, okay? We're trying to pay our respects. We're just going to have a non-political funeral and keep it moving, right? But no, Democrats showed up and basically did the exact opposite. They made it about Trump. They made it about politics. They made it about campaigning. They basically turned Jesse Jackson's funeral into a political campaign event. That's what they did.
Do not bring your politics, out of respect to Reverend Jesse Jackson and the life that he lived, to these homegoing services. Come respectful and come to say thank you. But these homegoing services are welcome to all. Democrat, Republican, liberal, and conservative, right wing, left wing, because his life is broad enough to cover the full spectrum of what it means to be an American. We only ask people to come and be respectful in the context of the extraordinary life that he lived. Each day we wake up to some new assault on our
Oh boy. Jesse Jackson's son asked them not to come there and do politics shit. But what did they do? What did they currently do? Oh, here we go. Obama getting his black ass up on there and spewing a bunch of racial bullshit. Jesse Jackson's son asked the Democrat Party not to get up there and say anything about politics. Don't make his funeral about politics. Well, what did Obama did? He got up there and did the exact same bullshit he did all the time, dragging race into this, that, and this and that. You disrespect a man's funeral, man. I'm gonna let you get back in the video, but watch and listen to the bullshit that comes out of Obama's mouth. Listen to the shit that comes out of his mouth. Okay? Listen.
Institutions.
Wow.
Another
Wow.
setback to the idea of the rule of law.
Wow. This is a damn shame, bro. This is a damn shame. Seriously. Jesse Jackson's son, Reverend Jesse Jackson's son, said, don't bring your politics. And Democrats showed up and made it about politics, about Trump. They made it a political campaign event. These people have no shame. They have no shame. Wow. This is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
An offense to common decency every day you wake up to things you just didn't think were possible. Each day we're told by those in high office to fear each other and to turn on each other, and that some Americans count more than others. I don't care what they do in Washington. I care what we do in the community. We beat people bigger than Trump. We fought people harder than them. If we stand up and be with
Yeah, Al
we're
Sharp's
supposed
stupid ass going in and
to.
getting
Bad
shit.
times like that. We're in a tough spot, folks.
Hey, dumbass Joe Biden don't know where the fuck he is.
He doesn't share any of the values that we have. And I don't think I'm exaggerating a little bit.
Let me just say, I predicted
I'm
a lot
drunk.
about what's happening right now.
Drunk ass.
I'm not into saying I told you so, but we did see it coming.
Wow. Wow. Shameful. Absolutely shameful stuff. These people, they just can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. They did exactly what they were told not to do. Because again, it's not about Reverend Jesse Jackson or unity or bringing people together or anything like that, right? Civil rights, all the stuff they claim. No, it's about using black folks for their own personal gain. And that's what Democrats did. They used Jesse Jackson's funeral as a platform for their own politics, right? To promote themselves. Kamala Harris, I was right. I predicted everything that was happening right now, right? Who says that? Really? Who says that? Seriously, at a funeral? Really? The funeral of a civil rights leader after his son said, hey, don't bring your politics. Keep your politics at home. But again, this is how Democrats see black people. This is how they use black folks, right? They use black people simply as a way to promote themselves. That's it. They don't give a damn about what black folks actually want. What black people care about. They don't give a damn about that. So you have a lot of black people who were offended by this, right? They took to the internet to express outrage over this stunt from Democrats at Jesse Jackson's funeral.
Reverend Jesse Jackson's son specifically asked everybody that attended the funeral to not bring politics to this celebration of life for him. What did Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, and everybody else who got up there, what did they do? They made it political. They started talking about the left and the right, and Al Sharpton talking about we can defeat Trump. We've been doing this for... Did you not hear what the son of Reverend Jesse Jackson said?
No, they heard it. They just didn't care. They didn't give a damn, right? That's the worst part about it. They heard it. They just didn't care.
He said, leave that stuff at home. And the first thing you guys did, you see, this is the thing. You guys are so desperate, right? You don't have your own campaigns. None of you guys have anything going on. So you use every opportunity that cameras are going to be there to spew out your hate for fucking Trump, all right?
Yeah, I mean, that's all they got at this point. Democrats don't have a damn thing except Trump derangement. That's the only thing keeping this party alive. Let's keep it 100. if Trump was not in the picture, Democrats would be in a really, really, really bad place right now, right? They'd be in a really bad place. That is the reality for Democrats. So that's why I'm not surprised. They don't have anything to say outside of hating Trump. They can't even show up to a funeral and just to give a eulogy or, you know, to give some remarks without Trump derangement. That really shows you how Democrats are empty. They're empty without Trump. They have no identity without Trump, right? That's basically where they're at this point. It's sad. It really is.
Instead of doing the groundwork and getting back in office, getting back in position to take over, you guys disrespect Jesse Jackson when his son specifically said, please leave politics at home today. This is the celebration of life. But it goes to show you how disrespectful these people are, because they don't give a fuck about nothing.
They don't.
Other than defeating Trump. That's Trump derangement syndrome at its finest.
Facts. You have another guy here. Let's listen to him.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. Jesse Jackson's funeral is that this whole idea about leftist, Gen Z, or whatever the case, motherfuckers being performative, is simply just projection. This man's son told you, do not bring your politics to this motherfucker. And you brought your politics. This idea that you couldn't have spoke at his funeral without adding your politics is fucking insane. The idea that if you don't want to vote for someone who just disrespected a civil rights activist's funeral and his family's wishes, if you don't want to vote for that person, you're not pro-black. That's fucking crazy. The idea that in 2024 we told folks, well, you might as well put the AIPAC shit to the side. You might as well put the Israel shit to the side. You might as well put the genocide to the side, because neither one of them are going to stop supporting Israel, stop fucking with Israel. So you might as well just do harm reduction. And now you're making an argument that for some fucking reason they would have just stopped supporting Israel, and that we would not be at war for Israel, even though we funded the genocide. But war is where we're going to draw the fucking line. Y'all need to wake the fuck up and truly take some responsibility for yourself. Democrats are not going to save you. They're not, bro. And then it's the fact that Bill Clinton was there. The same Bill Clinton that was sitting there smiling, reminiscing about his time at Epstein Island. These are the people that you expect to save you from that was at the island with them? Come on!
Hey, we got this woman.
So the late Reverend Jesse Jackson's funeral was held on yesterday, and despite his son reportedly asking that it might be political, the former Vice President Kamala Harris, former Presidents Biden and Obama couldn't help themselves. They had to express their TDS. So you have Kamala getting up there. And let me just say this, President Trump reportedly was invited to attend the funeral but did not attend. You have Kamala that gets up there, pretty much first words come out of her mouth. A lot of the stuff that's going on, I predicted. I hate to be the one to tell you, I told you so. Well, you told us so, and we told you no. Then she goes on talking about how when she was a child, she was taught that whenever a door is closed, that you're to knock on the door. But if she became an adult, she learned that sometimes when the door is closed and you keep knocking on it, if it does not open, that you should just bust through the door. So practically what I got from that is that when she became an adult, she learned how to break and enter, practically how to become corrupt. Then you have Joe Biden. I'm surprised they even let him out the house. You know, they rarely allowed him to talk during his residency, but they allowed him to talk, and he went on and mumbled and bumbled and made some memes like he always does. Started off talking about how we're in a tough spot. And then was practically saying how, you know, that this administration, Trump's administration, does not share the same values as they do. What values would that be, Joe, while you're standing in the church? Okay, Trump, to my knowledge, has acknowledged God, has acknowledged prayer, has acknowledged faith. Okay, it's pro-life, it's pro-free speech, it's pro-Second Amendment. So what are you talking about? Because during your administration, there was a lot of corruption going on. The borders was left wide open. Y'all ran that abortion thing. That's pretty much what y'all ran on. And saying all this in church, you didn't have the nerve to turn around and quote a scripture talking about those that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Well, we know who you've been waiting up on, and it ain't the Lord. Then you got Obama that gets up there talking about how sometimes it's hard to hope. We're living in times where it's hard to hope. Now, that was during your presidency, sir, 2008 through 2016. Those were some tough times with the housing crisis, all those bombs being dropped over there in the Middle East. You had kids being put in cages, deporting more people than Trump has even deported. You had
only at the border, that is. I gotta correct it here. I gotta correct, because when it comes to interior deportations, Trump is superior to Obama. Obama had a bunch of people come to the border and turn them around and then called it a deportation, right? So I gotta correct that, because that annoys me. It's one of my pet peeves. I hate when people claim that Obama was a better deporter than Trump. No. Trump actually has to do the hard work when it comes to deporting people. People don't show up to the border no more, right? That's the thing about Trump. People don't show up to the border. If people showed up to the border and he was turning them around at the border like Obama was, then yeah, Trump would be running up numbers, right? But those numbers, again, those aren't real deportations, right? Real deportations is when you get people who actually are in the country and you ship them out. Trump is superior to Obama at that.
You trying to change God's laws by allowing men to marry men. Okay, made it a law, hijacking God's rainbow. And then you stand up in church and say that, talking about how now evil and corruption and greed are reaping the rewards of wealth. That pretty much describes all three of y'all. All three of y'all. Oh, the hypocrisy, you guys. Off the charts. At any rate, rest in peace to the late Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was a civil rights activist. He also ran for political office, presidential office, in 84 and 88. He did not achieve that, but he did run. He had a few posts that I liked, but one of the main ones that I liked was never look down upon a person unless you are helping them up. So rest in peace, Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Yeah. So Democrats are getting backlash for that campaign rally that they had at Jesse Jackson's funeral. Okay, so again, you're talking about a civil rights icon, a reverend, right, a man of God who passed away, and Democrats, instead of just making it about his life, right, and celebrating his life and remembering all the great things that he did, right, as a civil rights activist, okay, for black folks, for others, no, they made it about themselves. They made it about hating Trump. They made it about politics. It should tell you everything you need to know about the Democrats, right? What they're about. They're all about themselves. They will use any platform to promote themselves. They have no respect for anybody or anything, really, right? They don't. But it also shows desperation. How desperate do you have to be as a party right now in order to turn somebody else's funeral into a campaign rally? It's insanity. It really is. So, yeah, they deserve the backlash. A lot of people are upset. A lot of people are saying that they were out of line. So, let me know what you guys think. But I personally think it's just par for the course when it comes to Democrats at this point. I don't expect much out of them, right? I don't expect them to have standards. Because if they had standards, then they wouldn't be Democrats. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a black conservative perspective. Peace.
All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Let's continue to dive into the latest there in this ongoing conflict in Iran, and we're learning new information. Axios reporting that the U.S. is weighing whether to send in special forces to seize some of Iran's nuclear stockpile. This here on social media, Barack Ravid posting it, saying the U.S. weighing this special forces to secure a stockpile of a highly enriched uranium at a later stage in the war. Preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon is one of President Trump's stated war objectives, and he Any operation to seize the material would likely require U.S. or Israeli troops on Iranian soil, navigating heavily fortified underground facilities in the middle of this war. We saw Operation Midnight Hammer last summer in that 12-day war. So we'll see what comes of this. But let's continue on here on Live Now from Fox. Bring into the conversation from Axios energy reporter Ben Geman. Ben, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. We talked a lot about nuclear. We talked a lot about oil and the energy artery in that region. What's the latest? What are you focusing on right now?
Yeah, so I think first of all, thank you for having me on. What everybody is watching this evening is what is going to happen to the price of oil when Asian trading markets open tonight, right? I think there's a very real chance that we could see crude oil prices rise above $100 per barrel for the first time since 2022. Now, this is a very unpredictable conflict, and I think, one thing to watch are the sort of politics of this and how the White House is going to be trying to mitigate the rise in crude oil prices. I don't think they can stop it, but I think that there are certain levers they have been trying to pull, both in terms of messaging and in terms of policy, to sort of limit the hit that consumers are going to be taking. But there's no avoiding that hit. As I think probably a lot of your viewers already know, we've seen gasoline prices move up about 45 cents per gallon since this conflict started. And diesel prices, I think this doesn't get quite enough attention, diesel prices have gone up even more. And while most people don't use diesel for their personal vehicles, of course, the cost of diesel just ripples everywhere throughout the economy, right? Because of, any type of goods you need that move along the roads and so forth, that price eventually gets filtered into those prices as well. So there is a real economic hit here, but a lot is going to depend on how quickly or not quickly transit can resume through the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, that is a very good point. We saw and heard last week that there might be some indications to mitigate that. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Chris Wright, the Energy Secretary as well, potentially coming through. How much of a lag is there, though? Even if the White House does something immediately, the Strait of Hormuz obviously not open, anything they can do, is it on a delay no matter what the United States and the White House does?
It is, that's right. There's a term that economists tend to use when looking at gasoline markets and other types of petroleum markets, where they say that the price goes up like a rocket and comes down like a feather, right? And so to the extent that we are going to see to the extent that we're already seeing price spikes, they are going to have risen more quickly than they will come down. And I think, some other interesting context here is that even if none of this was occurring, we would be seeing a little bit of a rise in gasoline prices, obviously much more modest, and that's for a bunch of sort of humdrum reasons, I suppose, right? You've got the refiners who are switching over from their winter blends to their summer blends, which have different environmental requirements. You've got spring breaks starting in different places, so more people hitting the road. You've got seasonal refinery maintenance. So, prices were already going to be moving up a little bit anyway, but this has, of course, put that increase really put it on steroids.
And we heard from the president talking about this, talking to other reporters that we've spoken to about exactly the impact. And it feels like they were aware of this, maybe not to the magnitude in which it does, but are we surprised that something hasn't happened already? And what might the White House do to mitigate some of these impacts?
Yeah, the number of levers that they can pull are not zero, but they are limited. I mean, some of the policy announcements that we've had so far is that the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, which is one of our sort of export finance agencies, could be providing shippers with some type of, emergency political risk insurance products and guarantees. That could perhaps give a little bit of confidence. You had the president floating the idea of naval escorts, but in all honesty, I think as long as this conflict is going on, you are going to see a dramatic reduction in the number of shippers that are willing to go through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the White House is also looking at other ways to get some more barrels out there. You saw last week the Treasury Department issued a limited 30-day waiver for certain sanctions on Russian petroleum for India specifically to be able to refine that. So on some level, there's kind of a whack-a-mole effect here in the sense of while we're taking on one geopolitical rival in Iran, this is something that's going to accrue at least a little bit to the benefit of the Kremlin. Now, that said, the Treasury Department was very quick to say, look, we're talking about barrels that are largely already on the water. This is a limited waiver. This is not some big gift to Russia. It's something that's going to materially help them, but it certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah, there's so many push and pulls with this global world economy in terms of this. You mentioned diesel because we talk about that. Maybe people don't put it in your cars, noted that, but they use it for transport of goods and services kind of across the country. Are there any other indirect impacts from this being felt in terms of jet fuel, in terms of other kind of facets to what's going on, the ripple effects, the aftershocks?
Oh, absolutely. You know, transit through the Strait of Hormuz affects the global economy in a lot of different ways. So you have, for example, products that are necessary for the development of fertilizers for crops, and you've got all sorts of other industrial goods going through there. So this eventually does ripple down to agricultural costs, to and by extension to grocery costs. Now, the natural gas rise, you know, if there's some better news for the U.S. is that while the oil market is an incredibly interconnected global thing, the natural gas market is a little bit less so. It is a global market in a lot of respects, but Europe, for example, is heavily reliant on liquefied